Welcome back to Applied Algebra. We are moving on in Chapter 6, and in this section we'll be working with equations with fractions. The first example that we have really just looks like a ratio or a proportion. So the easiest way to solve it is to do what's called cross multiplication. So we're going to multiply diagonally. So 4 times 45 equals 3x times 20. Now it's in a linear form, so it's easier for us to solve. 4 times 45 is 180. 3 times 20 is 60 with the x. We'll go ahead and divide by 60 to isolate the x. And we found out that x equals 3. Again, we can take and multiply, put the 3 back in to see what's going on. 3 times 3 over 4, that's 9 over 4. 45 over 20, they're both divisible by 5. If you divide them both by 5, you get 9 over 4, so it does check. So you can still go through the checking process. The next one has more than 2 fractions, so cross multiplication will not work. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is to get rid of the fractions altogether so you simply have a line of information. Think of the numbers that 4, 6, and 12 all go into. 4 goes into 4, 8, 12. 6 goes into 6 and 12. Since they all go into 12, we're going to go ahead and multiply this equation by 12 over 1. That's okay to do as long as we do it to everybody. So I'm going to use the distributive property. 12 times 3 is 36. 1 times 4 is 4. 12 times x is 12x. 1 times 6 is 6. 12 times 13 is 156. 1 times 12 is 12. So I haven't gotten rid of this idea of the fractions yet, but I'm about to. So now I'm going to look at them as individual pieces, and I'm going to do 36 divided by 4, and I get 9. 12 divided by 6, and I get 2. 156 divided by 12 gives me 13. So I was able to eliminate the bottoms or the denominators in such a way that I now have just a line. So I'm going to go ahead and just do my regular algebra. Minus 9. 2x equals 13 minus 9, or 4. Divide by 2, and my x equals 2. And I'll leave you to do your own checking. That process is going to continue no matter what it looks like. This 4 is really just over 1. Any whole numbers are over the number 1. So I'm not going to worry about this 1. It doesn't change anything. So I'm going to focus on the 6 and the 9. 6 goes into 6, 12, 18. 9 goes into 9 and 18. You can keep going. Just stop when you find the one that they have in common. I'm going to multiply this by 18 over 1. I do the distributive property. 18 times 2 is 36 with the x tagging along. 1 times 9 is 9. 18 times 4 is 72. 1 times 1 is 1. 18 times x is 18x. 1 times 6 is 6. Now we'll look at them individually. 36x, so 36 divided by 9 is 4. X is tagging along. 72 divided by 1 is still 72. 18 divided by 6 is 3, with the x tagging along. This one happens to have variables on both sides, but we've already covered that, so we know how to deal with it. I'm actually going to go and subtract the 4x, which I know is against what I've been telling you, but it's just because it's less steps. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. I'm going to go ahead and divide by the negative 1. I just was very careful not to lose the negative, and so my answer equals 72. I should not have written the x there. I don't know why I did that. As we all know, we just divide by the number, not with the x. Now, example 4 can be done in different ways. I'm going to try and make it the easiest for you. Let's go ahead and do this distributive property first that's already in the problem. 3 times 36 is 108. If we think about this over 1, then it would be 4 times 1, so that's over 4. 3 times negative 2 gives me negative 6 with the x taken along. 4 times 1 is 4. And then I still have the 32. Now I notice that 108 over 4 and 6 over 4 are all even, so I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to go ahead and reduce those. So 108 divided by 2 is 54. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And I actually can take this one down even one more step. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 54 divided by 2 is 27. So this ends up being 27 over 1. So now it looks like some of the ones up above, we don't have any parentheses that we need to worry about. So I'm going to go ahead and deal with that. My numbers are 3 and 2 in my denominators. 3 goes into 3, 3 goes into 6, 9, 2 goes into 2, 2 goes into 4, 2 goes into 6. 6 is the one that they have in common first. So I'm going to multiply everybody by 6 over 1, doing the distributive property. 6 times 2 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. 6 times 27 is 162. 1 times 1 is 1. 6 times 3 is 18. 1 times 2 is 2. 6 times 32 is 192. Any whole numbers are over the number 1, so 1 times 1 is 1. So we'll go ahead and reduce our fractions. 12 divided by 3 is 4. The x tags along. 162 divided by 1 is still 162. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 192 divided by 1 is still 192. I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms on the same side, which is my 4x and my negative 9x. Gives me negative 5x. Move my constants together, so I'll subtract the 162. So then my last step is to divide by negative 5. So x equals negative 6. Okay. So our last one here doesn't have parentheses, but it has more than one thing in on top of the denominator. So I'm actually going to, we've got a couple of things we've got to be careful of here. We can go ahead and split these and make it look like we did up above. So these would each be their own fractions. The other thing we have to be careful of is we're subtracting right here, which definitely impacts both of this. So I'm going to go ahead and split first. So it's 2x over 3 plus 1 over 3. I'm going to leave the subtraction there, but I'm actually going to add the parentheses for a second, because I'm really worried about us making a mistake with that, so I'm going to take care of it. So I'm going to go x over 4 minus 6 over 4. So I'm splitting all of these into two fractions. 2x over 8 plus 4 over 8, and then we have the 2 on the end. Now before I deal with anything else, I want to deal with this parenthesis. So if you can remember when we did this section with we're subtracting, if there was a subtraction with no number in front of it, we put a 1 there, and then we did the distributive property with that. So these first two terms aren't doing anything. So it's a negative 1 times a positive x over 4, so it's a negative x over 4. I have a negative 1 times a negative 6 over 4, so that becomes a plus 6 over 4. And then everything else stays the same. Now, some of you may notice that some of these can be reduced. You can go ahead and do that if you want, or you can go ahead and go forward without it. I'll go ahead and reduce them when I can. 2/3 does not reduce, 1/3 does not reduce, the 1/4 does not reduce, 6/4 reduces to 3/2. 2x over 8, that would become x over 4. 4 over 8 would become 1/2. So we're down to just having 3s, 4s, and 2s in our denominator. So I'm going to kind of sneak over here and use a little bit of this space. 3, 4s, and 2s. 3 goes into 3. 3 is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I'm kind of just trying to keep track, and 12 seems to be the one that they'll all go into. Now you don't necessarily have to do that process. If you know what 3, 4, and 2 go into without that, perfect, just jump straight to the answer. So we're going to go ahead and multiply this big long equation by 12 over 1, and we're going to distribute all the way through. So 12 times 2 is 24. 1 times 3 is 3. 12 times 1 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. Now remember, there's an invisible 1 here, so it's 12 times 1. That's still 12. 1 times 4 is 4. 12 times 3 is 36. 1 times 2 is 2. I'm still going. 12 times the invisible 1 is 12. 1 times 4 is 4. 12 times 1 is 12. 1 times 2 is 2. Remember, there's an invisible 1 under the 2. 12 times 2 is 24. 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, let's make this smaller and on one line. 24 divided by 3 is 8. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 36 divided by 2 is 18. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 24 divided by 1 is 24. Okay, so now what we're going to do is put our like terms together on the same side. Sorry. Let's get back down where we were. Okay, 8 minus 3. So, like terms, we have 5x. Plus 4 plus 18 is plus 22. On this side, just the 3x, and then 6 and 24 is 30. I'm going to minus the 3x to keep my x's positive. So I have 2x. I'm going to subtract the 22. Erase that. $30 minus 22 is 8. I'm out of room, so 2x equals 8. Divide by 2. X equals 4. So we came up with such a nice number through all that process. The big key on these big long ones like this is don't get frustrated, just go slow and step by step. If you have any questions, please send me an email or give me a call and we'll take care of you. Have a good day.